Superman is woke. Woke. That is absolutely undeniable. Also, the new 2025 Superman movie is woke. See what I did there? See what that was? Yeah, I know I'm probably going to annoy people by making this video and making that specific statement with it. Just read the title. Like, read it carefully. I'm going to phrase it in some way to make clear what my thoughts on that are initially. I don't want to alienate anybody for the wrong reasons, after all. I don't talk about politics a lot, at least not specifically, but you guys know I have strong political opinions, if you know me on my Tumblr especially. But I'll bring them up in my reviews from time to time. And man, the specifically political discourse around this movie is so stupid and frustrating to me. This is technically a review of the movie, so I might as well get my thoughts on it out of the way right now. I mentioned in several of my older movie reviews, especially my review for How to Train Your Dragon 2, that I rate out of 10, but I don't rate movies on some nebulous concept of goodness that's common to every single movie in existence. I rate it as an instance of the thing that it is, as a telling of the story it's trying to tell. And in my opinion on that scale, Superman is a 10 out of 10. There are certainly things I can see that people would be annoyed about in the presentation of this movie. Not even looking at the political stuff, because there is political stuff here regardless of what some people are saying. And yes, I know that means I'm agreeing with some scummy people, but it's true. But just the presentation of this movie is the most quintessentially Superman thing ever. It is as Superman as the old Adventures of Superman cartoon, which I know a lot of people, even now, still, even with this movie having come out, consider the most comic faithful motion adaptation of the Superman comics. I think this has it beat now, frankly. But there's stuff here that I could see annoying people who don't really interact with Superman media, or who just expect superhero movies to be something different, or might annoy them in general simply because their tastes are such that they would annoy them. Like, not everybody has to like Superman, and if you don't like Superman, you're not going to like this movie. You might like things about it, but you probably aren't going to like it overall. Though I guess I could see the performances changing some people's mind on the character. That's beside the point. I'm not getting into that right now. That is not what this video is about. I will say I saw this with my mom, and she usually cannot stand Lois Lane. She likes Lois Lane on paper. She understands her importance to the Superman story, and there have been versions of Lois that she found tolerable, that she thought served the story well enough that she could overlook how Lois is consistently written with traits that she just finds frustrating. No one has ever been able to perform Lois Lane in a way that made her positive qualities shine over those more frustrating ones for my mom. She loved Lois in this movie. She finally got it. But this is a movie that knows what to and what not to take seriously. It's a movie with a strong message of hope, with a strong message of optimism, of finding beauty in small things. It's a movie that is unapologetically weird. They exist in a world which has been weird for like 3 centuries or something, where things like interdimensional imps and kaijus and flying men with super strength and eye lasers are just commonplace to a point that nobody thinks twice about them. And in something like The Boys, for example, that's also true. And the heroes haven't even been around nearly that long in The Boys universe. But it's already become commonplace to see them. But nobody questions that in something like The Boys. They question it here because the heroes, for the most part, are actually heroes. And the metahumans, they're called, who don't become heroes just kind of live like normal people. They're not all kind of forced by some super corporation to become superheroes so they can be exploited for profit. They're just regular guys and gals, and otherwise, I would imagine, probably. They're not really something exceptional anymore. So that's how the people of Metropolis in this movie treat them. Some people thought Krypto was kind of annoying, which is the only one of these complaints that I genuinely don't understand, but whatever. They found the cinematography style kind of weird and a little off-putting. And some of them, even the ones who are trying to claim, as a rebuttal to the chuds who keep complaining about Superman being woke, their counter to it is erroneously that it's not. Because for whatever reason, so many people, even those who agree with the political statements that Superman is making, are, I don't know, embarrassed by how political it is. Either that or they genuinely don't see it somehow. I guess because the movie doesn't, make a point of saying that it's woke or why, really. It doesn't, call it out. It's just there in the DNA of the movie. But the dog is great. He's a fantastic comic relief. The whole movie is kind of jokey and lighthearted because Superman has a dog, and he's kind of jokey and lighthearted. People who don't realize that, they haven't read the Superman comics. Man of Steel, say what you want about it as a movie. It's that and Superman Returns was also kind of dour and unfun, right? Those are kind of the modern interpretations of Superman that everybody knows, or they've heard people talking about Injustice Superman, or they've played those games. But those things, regardless of what you think about them, are not faithful adaptations of the actual mainstream comic Superman. The cinematography in this is fantastic. If you're making a comic book movie about Superman, you've got these sweeping camera shots and these wide-angle close-ups of faces and symbols and actions that replicate the way comic book panels would be drawn to pull some person or action to the forefront and emphasize it while kind of stretching everything else back into the background and kind of force the perspective to make something, to put the emphasis on something. They replicate that faithfully, but not everybody's going to think that looks good in live action. I also see people annoyed that Lex Luthor is just a petty jerk in this movie, that he has all these schemes going, he's getting something out of what he's doing otherwise, but he's doing all this stuff just to kill Superman, because he's jealous of Superman. And they think, oh, that's not Lex Luthor. In the other stuff I've watched, he always had a legitimate political or personal reason to do what he does. He's benefiting from it above and beyond just Superman not being a problem for him anymore. Superman hurting Superman is just a means to an end. Here, the other stuff, the fringe benefits, are the means to ending Superman. But again, those other Lexes, the ones that are just mad at Superman because it allows them to get stuff, like the Snyderverse Lex Luthor, those are not faithful adaptations of Lex Luthor. Smallville Lex Luthor, who's not actually that bad of a guy for a while, not a faithful adaptation of Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor is a petty asshole who is jealous of Superman. That's his motivation, and he does kind of get over that to a point as the story goes on. He reverts a lot, too, because it's comic books, right? But he does kind of get over that, and his motivations do change. But that primarily is who Lex Luthor is. And they chose to adapt that here, and it works. Holt is the best Lex Luthor we have ever gotten. He intelligent but arrogant enough that it offsets that intelligence and makes him vulnerable when he logically shouldn't be. He's angry and he's petty and he's an absolutely terrible person because he believes that he is above everyone. Everyone. And if there's someone who he quantifiably isn't, he should be. The problem here isn't, as some critics are saying, that the Superman and the other characters and the Lex Luthor of this movie aren't true to the character. It's that they are, and you just don't like those characters. You thought you did, but you don't. And that's fine. This movie doesn't have to be for you. It doesn't have to be for everyone. Superman doesn't have to be for everyone. Not every story has to be for everyone. And thankfully Warner Brothers seems to understand that. They're not expecting this to make like $20 billion opening weekend. They expect it to make about as much as you would expect it to make for a comic book accurate Superman movie. James Gunn seemed to understand that too. So can we please stop levying criticisms at this movie that are just bad and wrong, please? I'm primarily talking to the chuds, the Ben Shapiro types, who his review was actually really fascinating to me. He didn't even sound like he had seen the movie, but that's beside the point. I keep seeing people in his political wheelhouse who are calling this movie woke, as if that is inherently a bad thing. Forgetting, seemingly, or being disingenuous enough to seem like they're forgetting, that's probably what it actually is, that woke is only considered a bad thing because they unilaterally decided that it is. The stuff that they call wokeness is almost universally not a bad thing. They call this movie woke because Superman threatens politicians and gets involved in complicated situations that will kill people. They call this movie woke because Superman is seen as an immigrant and treated like one. He is treated the way that an immigrant is treated right now in America. And I'm sure you understand what I'm getting at by saying that. But the thing is, this Superman movie is only those things because that's also true to Superman. Superman is an illegal immigrant who was adopted by down-to-earth American people and became an American and was raised on those old-fashioned American values, the good ones anyway. And because of his unique history of being found by parents who helped him selflessly, he becomes someone who helps other people selflessly, who can't stand to watch even one creature die if he can help it, and so gets involved in even foreign wars. Like, this movie says that if Superman were real, he would have interfered in Gaza. And by saying that and making Superman an aspirational figure in this movie, which the movie does do, it's saying that other people should do something about Gaza too. That real-life people should do what they can about Gaza too. And you've got all these right-wingers complaining about that as if James Gunn put that message into this movie where it doesn't belong. But I think, knowing some of James Gunn's political opinions, that he chose this movie because he knew that it would naturally say those things. It does comment on the situation in Gaza. It does comment on how we treat immigrants in this country right now. It does them passively through the story it's telling, but it does those things because a Superman story told right now would naturally comment on those things. Like, one of the things that Superman does in this movie, or technically before the movie starts, but it's talked about in the movie, that draws criticism from other characters is he flies over to the country that's doing the invading. We've seen it in the trailers. And he scoops up dime store Netanyahu and carries him out to the desert and threatens him. Like, he doesn't say anything explicitly, but he threatens him. And people were complaining about that, as if that's not something that Superman would do. Superman was threatening corrupt U.S. senators as early as Action Comics #1. This has always been a part of his character. And like, yeah, usually when he does stuff like that nowadays, they write it as if he was maybe acting before he could think. Maybe he could have taken a different route towards accomplishing whatever goal he was getting at. And that's kind of how they present it here too. That he maybe could have done things differently so that there wouldn't have been the political backlash that there was. But at the end of the day, he just doesn't care. Even if there was a better way to do it, he doesn't regret doing it the way he did, and he'd do it again because it kept people from dying. And that, in the end, should be what matters. We should stop invasions if we can, if it is at all possible for us to do so, because it keeps people from dying. We should take in immigrants and refugees because it keeps people from dying. And by extension, if you follow that logic, we should dismantle harmful capitalistic systems because it keeps people from dying. We should stand up to authoritarianism because it keeps people from dying. There doesn't have to be any other reason than that. There doesn't have to be any other reason to do things. Just like Superman doesn't need any other reason to swoop in and save a single dog or a single human life. Because it keeps people from dying. And complaining about that being in a Superman movie not only says that you don't understand who Superman is, or you are willingly choosing to ignore it to make your point, but it says that by taking this and villainizing it to make your point, you're just a terrible person. Not that I didn't know that about people like Ben Shapiro already, but almost as annoying. Not really almost, because nobody is really almost as annoying as Ben Shapiro, except the other people like him. But also annoying is the people who are claiming that this movie somehow isn't making those statements. Like, they almost seem ashamed of the fact that this movie is topical and political. And those people don't understand Superman any better than Ben Shapiro does. Keep using Ben Shapiro as the example, and there are other examples, but that's only because I hate him. They don't understand Superman any better than Ben Shapiro does. Claiming that this movie is not woke because those are things that Superman would actually do is disingenuous, because Superman, as a concept, is woke. And that's a good thing, because again, wokeness is only bad because some conservative chuds decided unilaterally that wokeness is bad. Reclaim wokeness. We need to take it back. We need to turn it around. We need to make people realize that being aware of the disenfranchisements of people in the real world and attempting to do something about it is a good thing, actually. As you can see, I'm super passionate about this, and I have way more stuff I need to record today, so I need to drop this for now. You guys get the point, right? Though, like stop treating woke like it's a bad word just because there are some assholes who want you to. Call it something else if you want, I guess. But stop acting like a character embodying this kind of thing isn't inherently woke, because he is. And the movie clearly wants him to be. It clearly thinks that that's a good thing, because by his existence, he inspires other people to be the same way. And regardless of how James Gunn is handling the publicity around this movie, he clearly chose this story to tell specifically because it would be a natural vessel to convey those woke sentiments, just like he chose the Guardians of the Galaxy stories to tell that he did, because they would allow him to tell stories about found family and abusive parents and all of the complicated and horrific shit from the third one in Rocket's backstory. Like, he didn't shoehorn those things into a story where they didn't belong. He told the story he did because he had something to say about those things. It's the same way here. People who worked on this movie keep talking about how they didn't make it woke. And that is technically true. They didn't make it woke because it already was, and they chose it specifically because it was woke in the ways that they wanted it to be, to say what they wanted to say. And that's why James Gunn is a fantastic filmmaker, specifically in the superhero movie sphere, because a lot of superhero stories over the decades have done that, and he understands that. He is making great cinema using these characters because he understands the characters and how to use them. Superman 2025 as a Superman movie is a 10 out of 10. It could not be a better Superman movie than it is. I was originally going to nitpick it a little bit and say, no, it's actually maybe a 9. There are some things I could find about this movie that aren't, perfect for a Superman movie. But no, they aren't real. I would only be saying that to sound like my thoughts on this movie are more nuanced than they are, to give myself credibility. But the fact of the matter is, that would be deceptive. That'd be basically lying to you, to get you to take me more seriously. I didn't even touch on how great the Justice Gang were in this. How they're already setting up for Maxwell Lord to be a shady figure. He's the one who funds them. And just how great they were across the board. It's also really cool. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. I know, F's in chat. But our Union Terminal was used as the Hall of Justice in this movie, because the original Hall of Justice in the Super Friends cartoon was based on our Union Terminal, our museum center. So they used the building inside and out as the Hall of Justice in this movie. It's kind of still under conversion into the Hall of Justice at this point in the timeline. It was really cool. It was really cool to see that. I need to go there again. I haven't been for a while. But yeah, if you even like Superman a little bit, see the movie. It's a good movie. And if your politics seem to even kind of align with mine, see the movie. It's a good movie. That said, what did you think of Superman 2025? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. Try not to be too toxic, please. But either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.